The biggest event in the international football calendar, the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, kicks off this coming Monday for fans in South Korea. The tournament takes place only every 4 years, and fans across the world will be tuning in to support their countries or favorite players. So what should fans be on the lookout for? Let's connect with Steve Hahn, a football writer from LA, to get some insights ahead of the tournament. Good afternoon.
Hello, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Well, it's good to see you here. This is the first World Cup to happen in the middle of the season for European footballers. What effect, if any, will this have on the teams?
I think we're already starting to see the effects of that. Playing the World Cup in the middle of a European season, it pretty much forced the major leagues in Europe to play through an extremely congested schedule from August to early November. For example, to give you a good example, the Korean midfielder Hwang In-bum, who's playing in Greece, he had to play 6 games in about 2 weeks before he joined the Korean national team for the World Cup this week. And also because there's only about a week of training camp for these teams before the tournament this time, there's less time for injured players to recover in time. The perfect example of that is Son Heung-min, who's recovering from his well-documented injury at the moment. And we just heard today also that Senegal Sadio Mane, who's one of the big stars in European football, he's been ruled out of the World Cup because of an injury. So yes, I do think the congested schedule is already making its impact.
Now, looking at the whole tournament, who is your pick for the player of the tournament? The World Cup has also often produced new prospects as well. Do you have anyone in mind that might go on to become a star from this World Cup?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of players that we can look at, but you can call me biased, I guess. But I'm gonna go with a Korean player this time, and I tip Hwang In-bum, the main midfielder for Korea, to be one of the standout players to watch. And now, are there players who are more talented than him around the world? Probably. But what's refreshing about him, Hwang In-bum, is that for a Korean footballer whose style of play is based on his skills on the ball, he has also, he also has this positional and tactical versatility to excel in all phases of the game. Possession phase, non-possession phase, and both attacking and defensive transition phases. So, Korea has had quite a few midfielders in the past with similar or even higher skill level on the ball in the past as well. But when it comes to a Korean midfielder who has the skills on the ball and the diligent work ethic off the ball, I think Hwang In-bum is probably just about the only player who can play to his strengths regardless of the team's overall system.
Right. I mean, I did want to be unbiased throughout this interview, and I try to keep the questions, World Cup overall. But now my last question to you is strictly, focused on South Korea. Do you see South Korea advancing from the group stages? The last time we played Portugal in the group stages, we beat them to go into the semifinal. So maybe that's a sign.
My head keeps telling me that this is going to be an extremely difficult World Cup for Korea, but that's not because this is a struggling team, just to be clear. In fact, I think this is quite possibly the strongest national team that Korea has had in over a decade. But, like I said, even then, Uruguay, Portugal, these are 2 world-class teams with squads that are strong enough to take themselves deep into this tournament. And even Ghana, when you look at the way they played in a friendly yesterday against Switzerland, Switzerland was one of the most impressive teams during European qualifying. But, Ghana beat them 2-0 in a friendly, which was a really impressive performance from them. So, again, my head keeps telling me that this is going to be a tough group for Korea. But at the same time, as Koreans, more than anybody else, we're well aware that, these World Cup games aren't really played on paper. And, also for the very first time, Korea is going into the World Cup with a team that's been managed under one head coach for 4 years for the very first time in history. So, my hope and my expectation is for Korea to make it past the group stages and to even pose a serious challenge to break into the quarterfinals. Because, I do firmly believe that this is a team that's strong enough to have that kind of ambition, even against the world's best teams.
Right, it's not played on paper, and that's why the World Cup is so interesting and exciting to watch, isn't it? Well, thank you so much for your insights, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.